Hello, everyone. Very good evening to all of you. Hi, hi, hi. Hope you like the new hairstyle. Got it done specially for all of you. Seems like nobody liked it. Hi, Amina. Hi, Jagan, AG, Vlogs. Good evening, good evening. Please call me Prashant. Lovely as always to connect with every one of you. Today is session two, session two of our training session. And I am just opening the rules of procedure as we had discussed. The thing is, there are so many files, it gets almost impossible to find. But nonetheless, I found it. We're here, and let's begin today's evening session with all of us. Thank you, Dheeraj. I made this hairstyle especially for you and everybody else as well. Advait's got all patriotic about it, saying Jai Hind and all. Bro, we lost the World Cup, man. So what's the? So I'm very disappointed in that. Very depressing. Said to all the games, one game we had to win, man. Rishikesh like looking sharp. Sharp. Yes, it was very sad. But any which ways, the fun part apart, fortunately or unfortunately for you, I love chilling and chatting with all of you, as you must have discovered. But at the same time, I need to also complete the rules of procedure, which is the actual reason for this session. We'll have plenty of time over the 3 days to spend time with each other. So I'm looking forward to that. Only bad news is I've got a little bit less coffee left today, man. So so that's why it's a bad day for me. But nonetheless, coming back to our session, last we spoke about how we represent different countries. We have like a single vote across all voting matters, how we communicate about the electronic devices, informal voting, moderated caucus, unmoderated caucus, and working papers. These are the few points that we had discussed in our last session, if you recall. Now, moving forward, I want you all once again to please open your rules of procedure document, which I've shared with you as well. And now we're going to go to point number 18. We have point number 17 to do as well. But before I tell you about point number 17, I'm giving it to you like, you could say an explanation way. So that's why I'm not following it point by point, but based on the flow and movement of committee is how I'm trying to essentially explain it to all of you. So point number 18 is something which is called challenge. Okay. Now, what is this challenge? And essentially, how does this challenge work? Now, remember, when we are discussing, we spoke about two things. I'm not depressed, bro. I'm not depressed, man. Street the pump. Don't say like that. I feel bad here, you know. But like I was trying to tell you, is that we discussed about moderated caucus on how we discuss subtopics of a main agenda. Now, there are different tools of debates as well. Okay, the different tools of debates to enhance, our interactions with the committee. One of these tools of debates is point number 18 called challenge. So, challenge is a one-on-one debate where basically United Nations, you could say, is a multilateral firm, correct? Um, that means multiple countries are being represented on the platform. Challenge is a bilateral debate where only two countries debate with each other. I'm sure some of you would have heard about Arnab Goswami. Yes, in the chat box, Arnab Goswami, anyone? Arnab, 9 p.m. The nation wants to know. Yes, very interesting fellow, no doubt about that. So, this tool of debate is actually an inspiration of Arnab Goswami. I actually like to call it the Arnab Goswami challenge because it is a super dramatic debate between two countries only. Only two delegates will debate one on one with each other. It's a no holds barred debate, which basically means you don't need to, wait for the other person to stop speaking or any such thing. Just like how Arnab Goswami drills the point, challenges the time when you can Like, it's like free fire. You can just openly, debate and, argue your point one on one with another delegate in front of the entire committee, and it's super fun. It is a type of motion. The interesting part about it is it's a type of motion where any delegate can raise this motion to challenge another delegate. So you need to raise your placard and say the statement, motion to challenge the delegate of Russia over Russia Ukraine crisis for time duration 2 minutes. The cool part about challenges, I'll tell you what, is that I am Russia challenging Ukraine, okay, or I'm Ukraine challenging Russia because I'm in blue today. So I'm Ukraine challenging Russia. So what's going to happen is, even though I have opened this motion to challenge the delegate of Russia, that challenge is a motion, which basically means everyone will vote on that motion. So the chairperson will ask all those in favor of this challenge. If 50% of these people are in favor of the challenge, then delegate of Ukraine will get to have a no holds barred challenge with the delegate of Russia. The cool part about this is that even if Russia does not want to be in a challenge with me, because the committee has voted with Ukraine saying that yes, we want this challenge to take place, it is compulsory for Russia to be a part of this challenge. This is the cool part about challenges. A no holds barred Arnab Goswami type debate where you must remember also not only that you can go blasting at the person, but at the same time you must also remember point number 4, which is decorum, where we don't insult or do any personal remarks or get carried away in our discussion. This is what one of the tools of debate that is called challenge. It is a motion, and all motions go through the informal vote. So if more than 50% of the committee vote for it, then that challenge is in order. And in case there's a challenge happening in your company, please let me know. I would love to come and see it personally because it's the most fun times in committee, in my opinion. So this is point number 18, tool of debate known as challenge. Next up, we have another tool of debate. Point number 19, question answer session. Question answer session is when the committee can collectively decide, all the delegates can decide if they want to question a particular country or particular delegate in committee. This again is a motion. How you have a motion for moderated caucus, you have motion for challenge. How you have a motion for challenge, you also have a motion to move into a question answer session. And how you raise this motion, you raise your placard, you'll say motion to move into question answer session with the delegate of Russia. Total time 5 minutes, total number of questions 5 questions. Maximum 10 minutes, maximum 10 questions. All right. In this question answer session, again, you will get a chance, like moderated caucus, whether you want to ask the first question or you want to ask the last question. That choice is yours. You can choose whether you want to ask the question first or last. Again, my strong recommendation is always and always take the last slot in a moderated caucus or challenge as such. Now, in a question answer session, just like challenge, even though the other delegate who is being challenged of the other country does not want to enter into this discussion, they have one vote. They have one vote and they will vote against it. But if 50% of the committee says that no, we are going to enter this motion, then the question answer session will be active. And even though the other country who is liable to answer those questions does not want to answer the question, yet that country needs to answer the questions in a question answer session. Maximum time limit for a question answer session is 10 minutes, and maximum time per speaker, maximum number of maximum time per question answer session is 10 questions, and maximum number of questions is one question per person, depending on how many minutes are there. One question, 1 minute. Dhruvan, the person who chooses, who has the ability to choose whether they want to speak first or last, or ask the question first or last in moderated caucus and question answer session, respectively, that privilege is only given to the person who raises that motion, not anybody like that. Suppose you have raised a motion, only you will get that chance. George will not get the chance. Renuka will not get the chance. You will get to choose whether you want to speak first or last. That privilege is for the person who raises that motion. Question answer session is a great way when you want to put another delegate on the spot. Okay, it's a great way when you want to put the delegate on the spot. In question answer session, essentially, you can ask the other delegate questions. In case the other delegate does not have the answers to the question immediately, that delegate can request some time to the chairperson and take some time to actually get the answers to the questions. This is what your question answer session essentially is. Then you have something called in point number 20, one for, one against, and two for, two against. Much like challenge and much like question answer session and much like moderated caucus, this too is also something which is a motion. So it's a, what is the difference between one for, one against, and two versus two? The difference between one versus one and two versus two is essentially it is a more civilized version of a challenge. It is a more civilized version of a challenge. In this challenge, what basically happens? In this challenge, what basically happens is that in this point, basically what happens is that one person will get a chance to speak first, the other people have to wait, and then the other person will get a chance to respond thereafter. In challenge, it's not counted. In challenge, it's not counted. In challenge, it is not counted. Challenge, anyone can speak at any time. But in one for, one against, or two for, two against, at this juncture in time, each person will get a limited time to speak first. Other people will hear and then they will get to respond. It is a civilized version of a challenge. It's also very interesting, no doubt, for putting out points across. But like I said, challenge is challenge, to be honest with you. But one for, one against, always, if you have more information, more content, more concrete information proof, and you're very confident, then you should go for the one for, one against as such. This is what your one for, one against, or two for, two against is. So how do you raise this? You raise your placard, correct? You raise this placard, and essentially what you do is you raise your placard, and essentially what you do is you raise it as a motion. Okay, you raise it as a motion for, one against, with the delegates. Name the names of those countries that you want to have that one for, one against with. Maximum time period will be 3 minutes. So if there are two people, one for, one against, then each person, first person will get 1 minute, second person will get 1 minute, third again the first person will get 30 seconds, again the next person will get 30 seconds, like that, till the time limit is equally split between the participants of that motion. How do you raise a motion? Very simple, just raise your placard, motion to open a one for, one against with the delegate of so and so. That is essentially what is essentially this thing, a one for, one against. It's a more of a civilized version of a challenge. That's about it. The next point that I want to tell you about is point number 21, another tool of debate called a joint statement. Okay. A joint statement is essentially when two countries come together to make a position, or to share their alliance, or to share their point of view, which is same. Say, for example, the European Union and the European countries in Russia-Ukraine crisis can together come because they are friends, they are alliances, they are part of same bloc. So that bloc, that team, those countries which think like you and want the same things as you, they will essentially can issue a joint statement where, as a unit, as a team, they are making a statement in front of the entire committee. This is essentially what a joint statement is. It basically shows, proves, reveals the, how do you say, It shows, proves, and reveals the alliance between the different countries, of friendship and similar point of views of the every country. So a very strong bloc, a very strong team. So again, Russia Ukraine crisis, since that's the one in my head, all European countries and Ukraine's friends can together make a joint statement, whilst Russia, Belarus, and their respective friends, may or may not be India also, can make a joint statement together. When countries come together to make a combined statement saying we as a collective unit believe in this or think this should be the thing, then it is called a joint statement. This is point number 21. The last tool of debate that I want to tell you about is something called presidential statement, which is point number 22. Now, this is a very important statement as well. This is also a very important statement as well, but this is a statement where you can also get negative marking. Where you can also get negative marking. Because when you use the term presidential statement, you immediately assume yourself to be not just a delegate, but the head of that state, but the head of the state. Like, for example, in India, many a times Mr. Jaishankar goes to the United Nations and makes statements. When important matters are there, then only our Prime Minister will go and make the statement. Now, presidential statement is a tool where, because you are assuming yourself to be the highest officer of a country, you don't have to wait for anyone. Anytime, anytime, you can just raise your placard, say presidential statement, stand up and share your thoughts and share your views on whatever you want to share with the committee. This is a very important thing. Why? Because remember, you have disrupted committee completely. You have stopped the functioning of committee no matter what, because you are the leader and to make this statement. So if that statement is not very important or not very urgent to be shared or does not represent the information a president or prime minister would share, you will get negative marks. But if it is a very, very, very important, urgent, sensitive issue that does synchronize or match the position of the office of a head of state, then you will get a lot of plus points as well. You can only use a maximum of two presidential statements in a conference. So use them wisely. They're like lifelines. Remember one thing, if you have the ability as president to stand up and make a presidential statement and stop functioning of the committee for that statement, then there is a compulsory yield to questions as well. There is a compulsory yield to questions, which basically means you have taken a time out of the committee. Your statement is supposed to be very important because you are a president. The committee will be asking you questions, maximum three questions on what you have shared in that statement. The maximum time allowed for you to make that statement is 5 minutes. Maximum. Minimum is your choice. But remember, you use the statement. If it does not match the position of a president or the office of a president, then you will get negative points. But if it's a very major issue, very sensitive, and something that the president would step out and actually make a comment or statement on it, then you will get a lot of positives as well. Be prepared to answer questions to the committee if you make such a statement as well. Maximum of 5 minutes. This is not a motion, so there is no voting. You can just raise your placard and say presidential statement. Maximum two presidential statement is permitted in committee. Period. These are the different tools of debate that I wanted to tell you about. One is challenge, where we have a one-on-one Arnab Goswami style. It is a motion, it is voted upon. Two people challenge each other, one versus one. Second tool of debate, question answer session, where the committee can decide whether they want to ask one particular delegate a number of questions. It is a motion, again informal voting, then it will pass or fail. One for, one against, or two versus two, one versus one or two versus two is a civilized version of a challenge where that time is split between the members part of that motion. Each one will have stipulated time period to speak, which will be evenly distributed. The next type of tool is joint statement, where countries come together with similar interests and objectives to make a statement in a committee. Presidential statement is when you assume yourself to be a supreme leader and make a statement and interrupt committee, but you are also liable to answer to the committee after you've made that statement. You get only two chances to do this. You might get positive or more likely negative marking when you use this tool of presidential statement. Now, here's the interesting thing that I wanted to tell you about, my dear friends. I hope you all are paying attention. The interesting thing that I wanted to tell you about is, remember in moderated caucus we discussed a subtopic. After discussing that subtopic, we made that working paper in point form 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. Correct? Now, it is not compulsory. It is not compulsory for you to directly go into voting on that working paper. It's not necessary that you submit the working paper to chairperson after unmoderated caucus and say, okay, let's vote on it. You can use the tools of debate on working papers as well, where you can pass a motion to challenge another delegate on that working paper. You can even open a motion to open a question answer session on the authors of that working paper, the people who have written it. You can even open a motion of one versus one or two versus two on that working paper. You can even open a motion to open a joint statement on that working paper. And you can even issue a presidential statement also on that working paper. And then, if you want, you can put it to vote, if not before. So remember, if you are listening to what I'm saying, it's not compulsory for you to take that working paper and vote it directly. You can discuss the working paper through the tools of debate. In fact, you know what? You can even open a moderated caucus to discuss the working paper as well. That is also permitted in the binding rules of procedure. So during your committee sessions, you will come, you all will give your attendance, you all will start with general speakers list. And during this period of time in committee, you will hear a very common statement that is made by the chairperson. And that statement is asking the committee, are there any points or motions on the floor? When the chairperson asks this question, which he will ask maybe every 15 minutes, are there any points or motions on the floor? You can open any motion of your choice. Motion for moderated caucus, motion for unmoderated caucus, motion for challenge, motion for question answer session, motion for one versus one or two versus two. All these motions you can pass at any point of time. When the chairperson asks, are there any points or motions on the floor? Motions, I have explained to you everything. What are points? If you go to point number 17, you will realize that like motions, there is something also which is called the points. There are basically totally four types of points. The first type of points, if you're reading the rules of procedure with me, is point of personal privilege. Point of personal privilege is essentially when you are facing any personal problem in committee, any personal issue in the committee. You cannot hear the other delegate speaking, maybe you need to go urgently to the washroom forever, whatever personal issue that you have, any personal issue that you are facing, you raise your placard, you say point of personal privilege, and you can be excused. Just like presidential statement, you don't need to wait for the chairperson to recognize you. You can immediately raise your placard, stand up and say point of personal privilege. No problem. The next, you have something called point of information. This is the place where you can get a lot of plus points in the committee, lot of brownie points with the chairperson. Point of information is basically pointing out any factual error that is made by another delegate. Say, for example, I am delegate of North Korea, but with a better hairstyle. Okay. And in committee, I am claiming that in my country, North Korea, I don't have any nuclear bombs or nuclear weapons. But you know that I do have those bombs and those nuclear weapons, and I am, you know, not giving the truth in committee. At that junction time, you can raise your placard and you can say point of information that the delegate of North Korea does in fact have nuclear weapons in their possession. Chairperson will accept it. But remember, if you are going to be putting a point of information, you must also have the proof to back up your claim stating that country has the nuclear bombs. Here again, your electronic devices will be very helpful to you again. This information and proof that you need to submit needs to be from a credible source, not from WhatsApp forward or Instagram. Can be from some of the top news agencies, the routers, Al Jazeera. It can be from BBC. It can be of any national or global credible news or media institution to back up your claims. So you cannot just stand up and say nuclear bomb is there in North Korea, but I don't have proof about it. You need to back it up with proof. If you do, you will get brownie points. If you raise a point of information without proof, then you might even get negative points. The third point is something called point of order. Point of order. This point I would not recommend you to use so much because this is like a point for teachers' pets only. Point of order basically means if you see somebody has made a mistake in using the rules of procedure, if someone has made a mistake in using the rules of procedure, then at that juncture in time, you can raise your placard and you can say point of order that delegate of so and so country has used the wrong rules of procedure and give them the correct rules of procedure. This, like I said, is you could say a cheap tactic in my opinion. We are all mostly coming for the first time, so avoid using this point as much as possible because let's debate it with some class. Point of order basically means the wrong procedure has been used in by another delegate. The fourth type of point is called point of parliamentary inquiry. Point of parliamentary inquiry. What is this point of parliamentary inquiry? Point of parliamentary inquiry is basically what? Is basically suppose you are there in committee and you need to say you want to do something in committee, maybe pass a motion, issue some statement, whatever it is. At that juncture in time, if you are confused, saying there are so many rules of procedure, which rules of procedure should I use? You can use this point of parliamentary inquiry where you can ask the chairperson saying, respected chairperson, I want to do ABC thing in committee, but I am not sure which part of the procedure I should use to do it correctly. Then the chairperson will tell you that delegate, use point number 16 or point number 12 or point number 25 in the procedure to do what you want to do. Use point of parliamentary inquiry whenever you're confused. The chairpersons, like I mentioned to you from the start, are your friends and are there to help you. So use this point whenever you are in doubt about the rules of procedure and which one you should essentially use. This is what is point of order, right? Point of parliamentary inquiry. Now, as I was saying, there is a continuous statement that chairperson will say every 10 minutes, like a parrot. Any points or motions on the floor. When you hear the statement, you can raise your placard and you can issue that statement or that motion or that point, whatever you want to do. Chairperson will recognize you. You say motion to open moderated caucus, or you can raise your placard, say motion to enter into challenge, or you can raise your placard, say motion for question on whatever motion, whatever point you want, your choice. You will get the chance. This is essentially the entire rules of procedure when it comes to your debating and discussing with one another. Please carry a copy of this document with you when you come to the conference on your computers or laptops or mobiles. Coming to the point of resolution. Okay, here's the point we all think in our minds, bro. The whole agenda, how I am going to in 8th standard find a resolution and make this resolution. At this time, you will realize that resolution is actually the easiest thing in the whole conference. It is made in the last committee session on Saturday. What is a resolution? I'll explain. Remember, I told you about a geography textbook. In that geography textbook, there are multiple chapters 1, 2, 3, 4. Each chapter is discussed in detail. Each subtopic of the agenda is discussed in detail through something called moderated caucus. After we discuss that chapter 1 or subtopic 1 in detail in moderated caucus, we make the solution called working paper. After we make that working paper, we either discuss it, debate it, or vote on it. After voting upon it, it will pass more or less of the times. Now, just like how you have your geography textbook, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, like that, you are also discussing the agenda subtopics 1, 2, 3, 4 through the tool of moderated caucus, and then writing the solutions also of chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and chapter 4 or subtopic 1, 2, 3, 4 in form of working paper. When you compile all the working papers, you have your resolution. You only think about it. If you study chapter 1 in your geography textbook, you write the answers after that chapter 1. Then you go to chapter 2, again study it and write the answers of chapter 2. Like that, you complete all 4 modules. After you've completed the whole textbook, you're ready for the final exam. Same way, when you discuss the agenda in detail through the moderated caucus and write down in simple point form the solutions to those subtopics, after you discuss all the subtopics and put them all together, you have your resolution. The resolution is essentially divided into two parts. The first part is something which is called preambulatory clauses. Preambulatory clauses. Preambulatory clauses basically is what problem you identified. The moderated caucus topics that you discuss in detail, that will come in your preambulatory clauses. For example, recognizing the price fluctuation of oil due to the Russia-Ukraine crisis. will be your point number 1 in preambulatory clause. The second part of your resolution is called actionable clauses. What are actionable clauses? Actionable clauses are you identified and discussed the problem in detail through moderated caucus and you've written down that problem in preambulatory clause. The solution to that problem you've discussed and that problem you've written in preambulatory clause is called an actionable clause. So your moderated caucus one topic, your moderated caucus, the first moderated caucus this you discuss in conference will be the first point in your preambulatory clause of resolution. And the working paper will be of that moderated caucus one point will be the actionable clause of your resolution. Same way, moderated caucus 2 will be preambulatory clause 2. Working paper 2 will be actionable clause 2, and so on and so forth. And that's how you basically make a resolution. Now, when you have a resolution, you have a lot of information available. So sometimes you make some changes, we make some amendments. There are two types of amendments that you can make in the final resolution. One type of amendment is consensual amendment. If there is maybe a spelling mistake, grammatical mistake, then nobody will really have a problem with it. Everybody is going to be in agreement with each other. So it is a consensual amendment and there's no problem of any voting in this because everybody is like, yeah, just correct the spelling, bro, it's cool. Non-consensual amendment, on the other hand, is when there is a debate on one particular clause, saying that should we have this, should we not have this. In non-consensual amendment, there is a voting that takes place, informal voting only, where we decide whether this particular point in the resolution should be there or should not be there. That is what you decide in non-consensual amendment. This is the two types of amendments in your resolution. Now, throughout the conference, if you would have realized, we do everything in the form of informal voting, simple majority show of placards, correct? The only time we do formal voting, which I'm going to explain to you, and is point 6 of the rules of procedure, is during the resolution. Formal voting, unlike informal voting, requires 2/3 majority, not 50% or 51%, 2/3, which basically means from 30 people, 21 people should agree and should vote for the resolution. Only then will it pass. Are you understanding the value of the votes now and the value of the lobbying and diplomacy and negotiations? Because it all boils down to this formal voting in your committee. Formal voting has 3 rounds of voting. Committee will go through 3 rounds of voting. In the first round, you will have 6 options. Agree, which basically means I'm voting for the resolution. Agree with rights, which means yes, I am voting for the resolution, but I want to explain to the committee why I am voting for the resolution. Disagree means I am voting against the resolution. Disagree with rights basically means I'm voting against the resolution, but I want to explain why I am voting against the resolution. Pass basically means I'm still confused. Should I vote for it? Should I vote against it? Is it beneficial? It is not beneficial. And 6, abstain, which basically means that I am not going to vote only on this resolution. In round one, these are the six options that you get for voting on the resolution. Round two is when the people or delegates rather who said agree with rights and disagree with rights, those people who wanted to explain why they are voting for or why they are voting against the resolution, they will get 30 to 60 seconds to explain why they have voted for or voted against. In round two, this is important. Why? And the final push through. Why? Because in round one, there have been maybe delegates who have passed, who have not taken decision yet. The delegates who get the chance to explain, agree with rights or disagree with rights for the 30 to 60 seconds why they have voted is the final ability to convince the delegates who have passed whether to vote for or whether to vote against. It's the final convincing chance that people have. And finally, in round three, the people who passed in first round and listened to why people have voted for or why people have voted against in second round, in third round, they will have to cast their final vote. They will nothing happens to pass in round two. They just listen about agree and disagree. And in round three, they make the decision where they are left with three options. Either they agree, or they disagree, or they abstain. Agree means they've got convinced by maybe somebody who said something in round two, so they voted for. Disagree means they must have got convinced because of somebody, something must have said in round two. And abstain basically means that, bro, I have decided not to vote on this resolution. Much like in the case of our country, India, that generally takes the stance on many matters in the conference. This is what your formal voting essentially is. Formal voting happens only once in committee during the resolution. Requires two-thirds of the majority. Out of 30 people, 21 people have to agree or with the resolution for it to pass. If 18 people agree and 12 people disagree, yet the resolution will fail. Yet the resolution will fail. Now, with this, we complete the rules of procedure of the 25 points in the conference. What I want you all to do is I want you to read through these rules of procedure, visualize yourself and other delegates in committee and get that flow of committee where you start with your GSL, yields, moderated caucus, tools of debates, and read in detail the rules of procedure. Don't mug up. This is nothing to mug. Read and understand and implement. And in your own words, no problem. One thing that I want to also tell you, another fun part of the committee, there is something called crisis. A crisis can be introduced at any time in your committee. You will be sitting in your committee discussing on moderated caucus on oil. Suddenly, the media house committee, along with its delegates, chairpersons, journalists, and photographers, will come and tell you that in the ICC World Cup final, Pakistan has conducted an airstrike in the stadium, allegedly. And a crisis does not come and tell you in advance that it's coming. It can be a man made crisis, it can be a natural crisis, it can be anything. Can be Nepal earthquakes that have impacted India as well, can be tsunami, can be another 2611, can be anything. And you will have to immediately stop whatever you're discussing in your committee, and you will be given a time limit of maybe 1.5 hours to solve that crisis with the rest of the committee that you're discussing. So United Nations Security Council may be in deep discussions on Russia and Ukraine crisis. Suddenly after lunch you might just come to know that another situation has transpired and the White House is under attack. And all of you will have to come together and solve that crisis there. Much like the committees and agendas we've given you, this we will not tell you in advance. You will get updates through your discussions. Saying at 1 p.m. this happened, discuss it. Then at 1:30 we'll get another discussion, another update that this has happened now, discuss it. A crisis is a surprise, is something that you won't be told in advance, maybe a man-made, natural, whatever occurring incident that happens in simulation in this committee, and on the spot spontaneously we need to put our resources together. We need to put our resources together and we need to put the resources together and we need to solve that entire crisis that is essentially taking place within a stipulated time period. That is essentially what a crisis essentially is. A crisis committee essentially is. And with this, my dear friends, we complete what I call the E-MUN rules of procedure. That being said, be prepared for a lot of fun, a lot of learning, a lot of debate, Arnab style as well. Read through the rules of procedure. One, list down and research 5 to 6 moderated caucus topics that you can introduce in committee. And tomorrow when we meet in the evening, we will have our doubt solving session. So please read through everything first. Rewatch the videos on the same link if you have to as well. And tomorrow list down the doubts that you have. And tomorrow's entire session is going to be dedicated to your some questions and some doubts that you have. That is the dedicated day for tomorrow. With regards to the dress code, the first day is Western formals. You put for boys a suit, tuxedo, shirt, blazer, coat, cardigan, formal pants or jeans, preferably formal pants, formal shoes, belt, tie, any accessories as necessary. Please don't go out and buy anything or ask your parents to buy anything for you. Don't waste your parents' money. After 2 years, you're going to grow out of that any which ways. So make do with what you have. Okay. Western formals for boys includes that. For girls, please take the advice of your teachers, mothers and sisters. Corporate formals, business formals, skirts, shirts, pants, trousers, heels, coats, formal dresses. These are the different things that will comprise of Western formals for you. First day and Thursday, first day and third day, Thursday and Saturday is your Western formals. Second day, that is Friday, is the traditionals. Traditionals does not mean you need to dress up if you're representing Pakistan like a Pakistani, if you're representing China like Chinese. We are going to dress up as our culture of Kerala, where I'm expecting to see the boys in the wonderful moons and the girls in the saris once again, or salwar kameez or whatever you think is necessary. Like I said, I don't believe in telling women what to wear. You need to ask your sisters, parents, and teachers. But Western formals, South Indian traditionals, Kerala traditionals, Western formals, this is essentially what your dress code essentially should be. So, that being said, my dear friends, thank you once again for being part of E-MUN Rules of Procedure training. See you tomorrow, 5:30 p.m. for the doubt solving session. Note down your points, read the procedures, watch the video again as well if you want. Make the moderated caucus topics. Please make sure that you do make a few moderated caucus, and thereafter we will meet tomorrow evening. Thank you so much for your time and patience. Once again, hope you like my new hairstyle, and see you in Kottayam very, very soon again. Bye bye.